Riding a bike with no handlebars is really dangerous. Even riding one with handlebars can be difficult, but Flobots aren't really known for their cycling abilities. Or are they? I'm not sure. But they are known for their music. Formed in Denver, Colorado in 2005, the band was originally a six-member lineup, and many session touring members have come and gone since then. But one consistency that the band does have is their lyrics and music. They promote the idea of a more positive, better world through rap, and it's worked out for them well so far. But how well has it worked exactly? Well, that's what I have to find out. Also, my only follow-up by these guys is the latest one titled No Enemies, so there you go. And I do want to apologise quickly, because I said I was going to get this episode done yesterday. I didn't know I was going to be babysitting yesterday, so I didn't have the time. But let's do the episode now. So, now, let's face the music. We start with the band's debut album, Fight with Tools. Released in 2007 through Universal Republic, it was produced by Flobots themselves and is their shortest album at 45 minutes and 35 seconds. The album does contain my first Flobot song, however, it wasn't Handlebars as it was for most people, but my first was Rise, which is ironically the last track on the album, so fancy that. Now, we go with the band background. Yay! The band originally formed in 2000, consisting of current lead member Jamie Johnny Five Laurel and Farad Ibrahimi, aka Yakto. They released an EP called Onomatopoeia. After that EP's release, the band went on a hiatus before returning in 2005 with a new lineup, consisting of Johnny Five, fellow current members in rapper Stephen Brer Rabbit Brackett, and drummer Kenio Ortiz, guitarist, vocalist Andy Rock Guerrero, bassist Jesse Walker, and violist/vocalist Mackenzie Galt, May Roberts. With this new lineup, they released another EP titled Flobots Presents Platypus. That gained some buzz, and soon after, the band would spend their time working on Fight with Tools. One thing that I like is that the album has a punk rock undercurrent. Not surprising, since the band is a politically minded rap group, and overall they have a positive message about unity, diversity, and standing together to fight a common enemy. Hell, Handlebars itself is probably a big part of that. The band got some good concert opportunities, getting to perform with huge names like Metallica, Atreyu, Bad Religion, Rise Against, and The Offspring. So, yeah, this album did a good job. So good, in fact, that it got the band their label at the time, since the album was released independently at first in 2007, before Universal Republic picked up on it and re-released it in 2008. So, yeah. The album sound is very different to what you'd expect from this style of rap or alternative hip-hop as it's called. The guitar, bass, and drums are a part of that, but it's the viola work that's a surprise. It's not something that you see often enough in most genres at all, but it really fits the style here. I like that all the band gets an important part too, adds to the message and tone of the album, giving it a real sense of unity. There's also a ton of session members as well for this one, who mostly play stringed and brass instruments, but none of it feels out of place, and it gives this album a feeling of experimentation, while still capturing a core sound that the band plays with so damn well. Johnny Five and Brer Rabbit trade some good bars with nice pronunciation and multi-syllable lines packed with emotional delivery. Rock's guitar work is nice with even some solos here and there, and this is the only Flobots album with solos. Jesse's bass work carries a funky, thick groove, Kenyo's drumming is measured, balanced, and heavy, and Mackenzie's viola work adds a nice smooth layer to it all, really giving the album a nice feel. Standout songs include Rise, the title track, The Rhythm Method, in brackets Move, with an exclamation point, Same Thing, yeah, and my favourite in, of course, Handlebars. With a mastery of tone and willingness to experiment, Fight with Tools comes to swinging with its messages and punch, and I can recommend it. It's really good. We then reach their second album, Survival Story. Released in 2010 through Universal Republic as well as Island Def Jam, this one was produced by Mario Caldato Jr., best known for his work with the Beastie Boys. We also have some guest appearances for this one, as Tim McIlrath from Rise Against appears on the song White Flag Warrior, and producer-songwriter Matt Morris appears on the song Infatuation. So there's not as much that I could find in terms of background for this one. Near the end of 2010, after the album was released, the band parted ways with Universal in what was a mutual decision. They would also split with Island Def Jam as well, but I couldn't find more about that, so let's assume that it was the same time as the split from Universal Republic. And another parting ways happened in 2011, as Guerrero would leave due to creative differences, so with little background to speak about, I'd like to talk about the critical response. It was mixed at best, with a lot of professional critics who actually know what they're doing saying that the lyrics and messages were too preachy compared to previous work. As I listened to the album, I just have one thing on my mind, and that is that they weren't exactly being salted before with Fight from Tools. If anything, I think that the band wanted to prove that they were done with that, considering that this album's most well-known song features the lead singer of one of the most influential modern-day punk rock bands who also have a political message. Yeah, the album's ham-fisted, but so is their debut. I actually appreciate that this album decides not to hide that anymore. It knows what it wants to talk about, it's not afraid to tell us that, and there's a kind of boldness that should be praised rather than ridiculed. With bands that comment on politics, they can't afford to be super subtle about it all the time. I honestly don't think that this album is that bad. It's basically like Fight with Tools, but with better production value. Mario does a great job behind the booth here, mixing everything so well and making sure that it's all polished and presented nicely. It also has some experimentations as well, as they try different genres here and there to add some flavour to the album's bouncy, enjoyable structure, while the lyrics cover political unrest, greed, and environmentalism. I really don't hold anything against this album, and the band actually perform well too, so it's not their fault. Johnny and Rabbit kill it with vicious flows and deliveries. Guerrero's last appearance is good with steady riffs guiding things along. Jesse's bass work provides a good groove along the album. Mackenzie gets more time to show him as both violist and vocalist and does a damn good job on both fronts. And Kenya's drumming is hard, fast, and damn good. Standout songs include White Flag Warrior, Superhero, The Effect, the closing song in Panacea for the Poison, and my favourite in If I. Survival Story is to the point, produced well and knows what it's doing, and it gets way too much hate from professional critics. I actually can recommend this one. It's really, really good. It deserves more than what it's given. We then move on to their third album, The Circle and the Square. Released in 2012, it would be the band's only release for the Shanachie label, I hope I'm saying that right, and it was produced by the band themselves. Due to that short time, this is the shortest gap between the band's releases. I don't have a whole lot of background for this one either, other than it would be the last appearance of both Jesse and Mackenzie as official members, but Mackenzie would stay on as a special guest during live performances at this day, and still performs as a session musician for the band, so she technically didn't leave. She's like the female Tom Denny from A Day to Remember in a way, but with fewer tattoos and way prettier. Anyway, with what little I have about the background, let's actually talk about the album. It handles its message a bit differently to the previous stuff, and I will say that of all their albums, this one is maybe the most fun. They don't take themselves as seriously here, but they still have a very forward political message. There's a bit more subtlety attempted here too, and sometimes it lands, sometimes it doesn't. Typical political album stuff, and also typical Flobots album stuff. But this album doesn't feel too typical. There's experimentation as always, and it's produced in a great way. It's fair to say that the band have learned over time how to put more effort into their craft, and it really shows through the songs themselves as there's some really good storytelling, and it feels like there's a little bit of a concept there. It shows the tone and consistency from their debut, but updated in the 5 years since then thanks to production value. And weirdly, there are things on this album that should distract it from me liking it so much, namely almost no usage of guitar and the fact that the choruses can repeat themselves sometimes, but that just adds to it, really. Of all their albums, this feels like the most rap-leaning of them. Call that the added sense of fun and a little bit of humour, but it's never overdone, and it shows just how much the band is willing to push their sounds. The structure is sturdy, it's handled well, and it carries a consistent tone throughout the running time. It feels more like a call to arms with the first song, and lyrically it promotes the band's usual messages of unity, peace, and even adds some bits of politics and religion tying in together. And because of the release being in 2012, there are references to the now complete bullshit apocalypse that we didn't know was complete bullshit at the time. But the band managed to pull it off without coming across as too goofy or too serious. It's well balanced. Johnny Five and Brown Rabbit's flows are vicious, with more trading and more time shown for both in verses. Mackenzie's viola playing is beautiful and smooth, and his singing is also great. Joshua's last album's bassist is nice and groovy and thick, and Kenya's drumming is balanced, measured and fast, and session musicians kill it too. Standout songs include Run, in brackets Run Run Run, On Lost and Having, The Rose and the Thistle, Going to Be Free, and my favourite in Journey After, in brackets War Fatigues. The Circle and the Square is well produced, written and performed, is surprisingly fun while still sounding conscious of what's happening. I can recommend this one. And finally, we reach the band's fourth and most recent album, No Enemies. Released in 2017, it's the first through the band's own label of Flobots Music. It was produced by Gabriel Otto, and it's their longest album at 56 minutes and 5 seconds. And thankfully, I actually have some more background for this one, so whoopity-doo-doo-doo. So by this point, the band has been reduced basically to just Johnny, Rabbit, and Kenny, and I guess that's part of the reason why this album took so long to get out, that and being dropped from their label. So the band did what most bands without labels do, which is ask the fans to help the funding of the album via the means of Kickstarter. The band initially announced the album in 2015 and said that they'd raised the money for 2 albums thanks to Kickstarter. I hope that the next one comes soon, because, yeah, to nobody's surprise, this one is actually pretty awesome. There are a lot of elements of it that are inspired by the 2016 presidential election, but at the same time, it's not an anti-Trump album. I do like it when a band has the chance to pluck the low-hanging fruit and instead reaches up higher in the branches. Of course, it feels odd to say that, as the song Rattle the Cage was released earlier than planned on purpose as a response to those elections, and in 2017 they released the song Pray, which came out on the same day as Trump's inauguration. But despite all of the American election controversies, the album is more influenced by Vincent Harding, best known for his writings about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and he was a mentor to the band as well. Harding, not Martin Luther King. He wouldn't have been alive by that point. Considering that Harding did pass away in 2014, it's clear that that left a mark on the band, and much like they always do, they made music about important subjects. The style is classic Flobots, but with a new epic sense added to some things, which is nice to see, since it shows that the band did grow and improve in the 5 years since The Circle and the Square. The sound is still experimental, adding some electronic elements, some more rock styles, and there's brass and string instruments used all to perfection too. The album feels like such a nice little package all tied together, and it feels like a celebration of their debut album a decade after it came out. The structure is well put together, fast-paced and delivering its messages with gumption and drive, and it's so balanced well. The lyrics cover things like Trump, yes, but also things such as race war, gang violence, climate change, and immigration reform. Pretty important stuff, especially nowadays, and the band kill it too. Johnny Five and Brer Rabbit both shoot off some really mean bars with all the impact and intensity that you've come to expect from the two, and Kenny's drumming is heavy and keeps with the pace and guides things along well, and once again, Sesame musicians add so many layers to the sound, so they deserve a shout out. Standout songs include Failure Games, Carousel, Rattle the Cage, American Dreams, and my favourite in Pray. No Enemies is a bold statement, showing the band at their best while still proving that there's life in them yet. I can recommend this one, and I hope there's more stuff soon. So, let's round them up. Most favourite is probably No Enemies. Yeah, so it was my first, but that doesn't take away from how good it is. It's how one does a politically charged album correctly, especially in the modern day. Least favourite is maybe Fight with Tools, but I don't exactly hate it. It does have my favourite Flobots song in Handlebars, but the band have come so far since then, I feel. But whatever, I wish to make absolutely no enemies with that statement. Anyway, join me next time as we cover Leyden, Utah-based hardcore/gothic rock band Get Scared. As always, thank you for watching, you're awesome, bye bye.